Today, some of us here at Affair Recovery were reminiscing about the old days when we used to play Oregon Trail. And I remember that there was something so powerful about having that group. I was asking everybody, and if you can remember Oregon Trail, how they died, almost everybody said dysentery. But it made me think about couples that are going through this whole thing of infidelity. And how do most of them die, and why do they die? It's not dysentery, thank goodness. But in that game, and it was a great metaphor for recovery, it was about having to be a part of a group. Because in that wagon train, there was more power, there was synergy, there was safety in numbers. And I wanted to talk a minute about how the whole concept of groups came about for us. It was years ago when I was working at Minirth Meyer, and they decided they would give me all the couples dealing with infidelity. And they gave me so many couples, there was no way I could see everybody. So I started thinking, what about groups? Because one of the things that would happen to me is people would come in and they'd say, do you have someone that I can talk to? Because they felt alone and they felt isolated. And I thought, why not a group? So I began slowly putting groups together, but it's not that it was something I was doing, it's just that these people wanted to take a journey, but they also wanted help in taking that journey. They wanted someone to go along with them. They didn't want to feel alone. And what I began to see is that when they came together, when they would meet, as they wrote their story, they would begin to feel normal again. And most people struggling with infidelity, they feel so incredibly misunderstood or judged by other people. But when you're with others going through the same thing, they felt good about themselves. They began to see their mate better as they talked to one another. And it's almost like someone could listen to a person talking to her mate and they would go, huh, look at that. I can understand it and believe it when they say it. Maybe my mate's feeling the same way. And so they were able to wrap their mind around that maybe there was change they hadn't seen. And in that group, they no longer felt isolated. And I thought, that's good. Well, the other problem was, back in those days, they could see me 1 hour a week. But most of the people that are dealing with infidelity, it's such an emotional firestorm. 1 hour a week is not a whole lot. But when they had a community they could begin to talk to, suddenly they had support 24/7, or at least a good 14 to 16 hours of the day. Years ago, I remember swimming in the dark, and I think I've told this story again somewhere, but it was really funny. It was in the middle of the night. 3 or 4 of us decided we would go swimming, and we had just watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And the 2 of them go leaping over a cliff holding hands into the water to escape. And so we decided we would replicate that scene, but we would do it in the middle of the night, which really wasn't very smart, having a bunch of 14-year-old boys cliff diving in the night. But 3 of us decided we would do it. So we held hands and we ran and we jumped off that cliff. 1 person stayed behind, thankfully. And it was about a 30-foot cliff, and we hit the water, and it was exciting because you couldn't see the water, by the way, so that was kind of weird. But you hit the water and you went underneath, and then I began trying to find the surface. Well, the problem is, if you're swimming in the dark, you don't know if you're going up, down, sideways. And after about 30 or 40 seconds, I was pure panicked because I didn't know where I was going. And thankfully, the 1 kid we left up on top was wondering what happened, and so he turned that flashlight on. And when I saw that light, I went crazy and went right up to the surface. But what I've learned is that with infidelity, it's just like swimming in the dark. I mean, are you and your mate, getting better? Are you getting worse? Are you, is it normal? What's going on? And what I began to see when they were in that group together, they had a sense of direction, but they also had a sense of where they were. It didn't feel like they didn't know what was happening, and they could see where their problems were. I began to notice that the people never wanted to leave. We would get together and the group would be over and I'd be, hey guys, it's time to go on. But there was something powerful about just feeling connected again and feeling, again, normal in a sense because everybody was like them. And the other thing I noticed is when they began to see there were others like them, it made forgiveness a possibility. In the isolation of infidelity, one of the bigger issues is that it feels like it's just all about you, and it happened to you, and it just seems too big somehow to deal with or to let go or to forgive. But when there were others that were like them going through the same thing, they began to see that others too had suffered. It was a bigger issue than just them, and somehow it made it seem less personal, which made forgiveness a possibility. I saw that for these people, one of the reasons they didn't want to leave is they felt safe. Because there wasn't judgment. I mean, so often, people dealing with infidelity, they tell people what's going on. Everybody has an opinion as to what they do. But nobody knows what they're going to do until they get there. But in the group, nobody's telling anybody what to do. Nobody's worried about any judgment. And so they were like, it's safe here. But the other thing that really shocked me about the groups is that people would finish the group. As a marriage and family therapist, I think the average number of sessions at one point was like couples would come 5 or 6 times, maximum. That was good. But in a 13-week group, what I noticed is that 89% of the people finished. Rarely would people dealing with infidelity see a therapist that many times and do that much work to begin to get whole, either as a couple or individually. But the group somehow had this synergy where they wanted everybody to win, or every individual to do well. And in that process, it helped them to move forward. That's one of the reasons that Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step groups actually are successful. Everybody wants everybody to do well. And what I saw is that those that did the groups actually did far better than those who didn't. So why not do groups? I understand the anxiety that people may experience when they think about being on a phone call with other people, other couples, or individuals in a group, or if, they're in person at EMS weekend or something like that. But I can almost also promise you that once you get over that initial kind of discomfort, it's a place where in some ways it feels safe. In fact, it almost feels like you're understood. It kind of feels like you belong. And infidelity does anything but making you feel like you belong, so it's great to have a safe place. Groups are worth it to healing.